Nightly greetings one and all. Monique Tuzon here for your recap of major events since the middle of last week. We begin with tragedy of Shakespearean quill and democracy's most famous home, where the second in line of succession abdicated his post, aided in large part by a concession he made to eke out the speakership he won in a tedious and long drawn-out battle with hardliners from his caucus in January. He was ousted by a new gang of 8 on the Hill, members of his own caucus led by Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who, as McCarthy earlier said in the week, didn't mind if they burned the House down, despite efforts from everyone else to avert a shutdown of government and keep it funded over the next 45 days. As a result, the entire House is in a state of paralysis until next week, when the Republican Party or GOP decide on a speaker to replace McCarthy and get their acts together as the ruling party. Oddly enough, former President Donald Trump has remained hushed on the sidelines throughout the entire drama. One of the most items not in the last spending bill approved by Congress to fund government over the next 45 days is continued aid to Ukraine. Republicans have blamed Kyiv and Zelensky for heavily relying on the United States to finance its homeland defense against Russia's invasion to a running tab of $42 billion since the spring of last year. Yet a key item that drew bipartisan support to receive an allocation in the approved spending bill is funding for anti-illegal immigration at the border. The onslaught of immigrants reaching the border towns of Texas, California, and Arizona has reached alarming numbers of 6,000 to 8,000 a day. The Texas town of Eagle Pass and the city of El Paso have both declared states of emergency as numbers reach breaking point. On the other side of the planet in Asia, political refugees of Armenian stock in the Nagorno-Karabakh have abandoned their homes and flocked en masse to Armenia after Azerbaijani forces muscled their way and completely take over. An estimated 80% or 100,000 have poured into Armenia over the last 2 weeks. Still in the middle of the East, merrymaking and mirth in Iraqi town turned into madness and mayhem when flames that sparked from flimsy and prefab material turned an Iraqi wedding into a raging inferno, sending guests scurrying in every direction as flames from the ceiling fell and blazing walls collapsed. After the flames died and came under human control, the body count was horrifying, with at least 100 dead and 150 with varying degrees of burn injuries. Firepower at an even greater destructive level was in full display on the 75th anniversary of Armed Forces Day in Seoul, South Korea, as the country's military showcased some of its lethal hardware for the press and public to soak in. President Yoon Suk-yeol in his speech said the parade is both testament and warning to its neighboring Pyongyang to not try messing with Seoul on its military capabilities. Even more, in the self-ruled island state of Taiwan, defending the homeland took a step forward when its government unveiled its homemade submarine for testing to ensure it makes the grade in the field of battle. The 230-foot-long diesel-electric-powered attack submarine, christened Haikun or Narwhal, a mythical sea creature, had its launch last Thursday at the CSBC shipyard in the southern city of Kaohsiung. Meanwhile, here at home, a high crime of hit and run in the high seas left 3 homegrown Filipino fishermen dead after a commercial vessel rammed the fishing boat they rode on along with 11 other fisherfolk who survived the mishap. Still grieving from the death of his close friend, ally, and colleague, Susan Tutople, the president expressed sadness and lamented yet another irrevocable loss to the sector that feeds the nation. Then again, he ordered the military and the Justice Department to track down the ship and hold them to account. On more mundane news on fun and games, the chosen one, LeBron James, is prepping for his 21st season of play in the league and dedicates this year and next to his firstborn, Bronny, who was recovering from a heart-related ailment that felled him in a practice game at a USC gym in July.
Nothing else matters besides my family, and obviously I'm going to dedicate this the season because to Bronny because of the incident that happened this summer and understanding that it just puts everything in perspective and no matter what's going on.
Meanwhile, in the ongoing Asian Games in Hangzhou, China, the nation's biggest and world-class track and field athlete easily took home the gold in pole vault, proving his status and ranking as one of the top 3 on the planet. And in a truly uplifting come from behind, the country's best hoopsters proved his mettle yet again by scoring the last 10 points in a game of pride and patriotism. The last 2 from quick step back and pull-up Jays from 3 points. That edged home team and favorite China and sent Gilas to the gold medal game. At this juncture, we turn to VOA's Chris Casquejo for a summary of more world events.
South Korea holds a military parade for the first time in 10 years amid North Korean threats. Welcome to VOA Asia Weekly. I'm Chris Casquejo in Washington. That story is coming up, but first, making headlines. The Pentagon said Wednesday that Private Travis King is in U.S. custody after North Korea expelled him. King crossed the heavily fortified border between the 2 Koreas on July 18th while on a civilian tour of the joint security area. China said it will safeguard territorial sovereignty over an area in the South China Sea where the Philippines on Monday cut a floating barrier installed by Beijing. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said on Wednesday without specifying any concrete action. Indonesia has banned transactions of goods on social media platforms in a new regulation, its trade minister said Wednesday, as Jakarta aims to rein in direct sales on major platforms it says are harming millions of small businesses. Huawei Technologies is showcasing a series of new products, including its latest Mate 60 smartphone series. But some experts say because Huawei was forced to develop its own Harmony operating system while limited by U.S. sanctions, the Chinese tech giant is unlikely to reclaim international markets. South Korea on Tuesday hosted senior diplomats from China and Japan for a rare trilateral meeting seen as trying to ease Beijing's concerns over the 2 U.S. allies tightening cooperation between themselves and Washington. South Korea held its largest-scale military parade in downtown Seoul, the first such event in 10 years, to commemorate its upcoming Armed Forces Day on October 1st. As VOA's Nikki Ching reports, the parade comes amid heightened tensions between the 2 Koreas.
Thousands of troops took part in Seoul's largest military celebration in a decade, showcasing South Korea's defense capabilities with a display of weapon systems ranging from attack aircraft, tanks, to Navy vessels. The parade comes as South Korean President Yoon Song-yeol says his country faces increasing threats from North Korea.
Despite repeated warnings for decades from the international society, North Korea has been advancing their nuclear and missile capabilities and even openly threatening nuclear use. These are existential threats to the Republic of Korea and also a significant challenge to world peace.
The public got its first look at several new weapon systems, including a long-range surface-to-air missile developed to intercept ballistic missiles from North Korea. Some South Koreans say they are not so concerned about the threat of an imminent attack.
미사일을 이제 새벽에 날려서 이제 급하게 이제
Sometimes my husband is on duty from early morning because of missile launches, but I really don't think that anything will happen.
North Korea has been bluffing for more than decades, so I really don't think that a nuclear war in the Korean peninsula will occur.
For the first time, South Korea's Drone Operation Command joined the parade. In another first, and as relations have been described as reaching new heights, American troops marched alongside the Korean military, marking 7 decades of their military alliance. Nikki Chin, VOA News, Seoul.
U.S. President Joe Biden hosted leaders from Pacific Islands Forum countries on Monday. Biden announced the U.S. will establish diplomatic relations with the Cook Islands and the island nation of Niue. He also pledged funds for climate assistance and infrastructure, but U.S. lawmakers have to approve those funds. Visit voanews.com for the most up-to-date stories. I'm Chris Casquejo. And now we leave you in the heart of Tokyo. In the traditionally male-dominated workforce of rickshaw pullers, women now make up nearly a third of the pullers at one Tokyo company. Once a person is hired, they must undergo rigorous training, including pulling a rickshaw that weighs up to 551 pounds or 250 kilograms. Thanks for watching VOA Asia Weekly.
And that's it for this latest recap of events since mid last week, and look forward to seeing you for your news rundown in the Global Roundup. This is your host Monique Tuzon, wishing you a mighty fine and restful weekend ahead of you, and reminding y'all to work hard, dream big, stay cool, be kind, and catch the news right here on PTV.